What's going on, everybody? It's your boy GemMint, and today we're going to take a look at every premium Venom statue ever. And like videos I've done in the past, we're going to keep this to licensed pieces that are quarter scale and above for the most part. I wouldn't even know where to begin on compiling every Venom custom statue to make a video, and that would be like a 3-hour long video. Also, stay tuned until the end of the video because I have a Venom statue that is going to blow your mind that I don't think many have seen. If you guys are enjoying the content, leave a like on this video, consider subscribing, and hit that bell notification as we jump into the first one. And you know we got to start with Sideshow, the original Venom comiquette, sculpted by Martin Canali, which ironically is the sculptor on the most recent Sideshow premium format that we'll get into a little bit later. But this was the OG, and I say quarter scale and above. I don't know that this really fits that mold. It really felt more like a 1/5 scale, significantly smaller than other Venom statues, and even the Spider-Man comiquette and the Carnage comiquette that went along with this one. Very simplistic, traditionally sculpted, 2 pieces, just the Daily Bugle base with Venom. I did like the sculpt. I like that gnarly growl that they've given him in his face, but for me, just slightly underscaled. Keeping it with Sideshow, but we're going to swing on over to a life-size bust. I always wanted this bust. When I got into the hobby, it had already been long sold out, and like most collectors, you get into that hobby and you start buying all of the old stuff as you're finding out about it, searching through YouTube or eBay or what have you. It didn't really age that well, but I liked it so much better than the second Venom life-size bust, the one that I owned. I always kind of look back at this and search eBay. It was out of my price range at the time. I feel like the mouth is the focal point on most Venom statues, and that's where this one shines. The teeth and the jaw and the tongue, they look good, but they just look slightly irregular. It looks a little bit off, like everything is kind of pushed forward just a tad. But even looking at this picture, I think the colors look great, from the symbiote to the inside of his mouth to the jaw and the gums. The first Venom life-size bust, but definitely not the last. And you know what? Trying to stick with the timeline here, let's just look at the next one, the one I was referring to, the very alien-like Venom life-size bust. Now this one seems like it was much larger. The other one didn't have as much height, even though they have similar bases with the nameplate and everything. This one actually has more of the chest and his traps, the Venom emblem, which I'm wearing here as well. This one didn't have as good as a paint job as the original, in my opinion. Very muted in the mouth, more of a dark purple, which I noticed immediately when I was reviewing this one. Also, the eyes, they didn't really feel like Venom from the comics. It was definitely a unique take by Sideshow, giving it more of an alien feel, which does make sense, but I think it's strayed a little too far from the source material for statue collectors. All right, now I might be off on my timeline a little bit, but to switch gears off of Sideshow for a second, we're going to present the very first XM Studios Venom statue in quarter scale, which when this was released blew everyone's minds. Everybody had kind of felt the same way about the Venom comiquette. Yeah, it was a great piece. It was masterfully sculpted, but it just didn't feel like Venom. It didn't have the big imposing nature that Venom and Eddie Brock have. This one gave us all that. It was an enormous piece. XM Studios was in their prime during this era and delivered a great Venom that had some aspects of it that I liked and some aspects that I didn't like. For one, I wasn't a fan of the vein-like nature of the symbiote and how it had a high gloss finish on top of the matte finish. I didn't really feel like it went well together, and I wasn't a fan of the Spider-Man emblem on his chest, or the Venom emblem, if you will. Even in this picture, you can see along the sides here, I didn't like how thin this was and how jagged. It just didn't feel like the Venom from the comics that I know and loved. They did a great job on the portrait though. Those eyes look great. The teeth were good here as well, and they even delayed this piece because of the McFarlane portrait not coming out how collectors wanted to. And I remember back then thinking, wow, this company really listens to its audience, and they delayed it in order to get the McFarlane portrait right. They had a origin story inspired base with the bell tower, with this clock. You had little tendrils of symbiotes going near the sides. This piece still holds up to this day, but I don't think it's the best Venom piece in quarter scale. You know what? I think I might be right with the timeline, because when I started this channel, I had this piece on pre-order and I was excited to get it in to do an unboxing and review. This is technically the first Venom premium format from Sideshow, and I don't really think they hit it at the park with this one. You never hear collectors talk about it. I rarely see it in displays. And although it had some things going for it, like it had more size and presence than the original Comiquette, there was a lot of things I didn't like about it. I didn't really love the pose. Yeah, Venom can be very animal-like and beast-like in nature, but I don't really feel like that's how most collectors see him in their minds. This one also suffered from this avocado textured skin, which I don't think most collectors like. I did think the Venom emblem looked better on this than the XM offering, and the portrait was very reminiscent to the original Comiquette, so it was good there as well. One thing I never liked on Venom statues or Venom in the comics is giving him toes with sharp nails. The base is also very forgettable as well. It's got this black sub base, a little bit of smoke, some type of building structure that he's leapfrogging over. It was a forgettable piece. Let's jump back into life-size bust, the third offering from Sideshow, and I think this was the best one out of the three. However, it is definitely not my favorite life-size Venom bust, and I feel like the pictures actually look a lot better than what I've seen in person. In person, I've always felt like the mouth area lacks in its paint applications. The colors just don't really pop, although, again, in this picture, they do. These kind of brownish yellow teeth giving the translucent saliva on it, the tongue sticking out a little bit more wildly, the inside of the mouth looks good. The eyes even look good too. I like the shine on the white and how they make it have depth, but what I never liked about this piece was how his traps go downward. It almost makes him look like Grimace or something like that from McDonald's. It makes his shoulders look super small. Now, if he had shoulders that came out like this, maybe, you know, it would look better. But the way that this bust is sculpted, I kind of felt like there was too much emphasis on these traps and they went downward so much, and it just always kind of threw me off. But looking at this piece now, we're seeing a lot of detail in the neck, whether it's symbiote or muscle tendons underneath. You can see the collarbones here, and beautiful job on the emblem. I think this was also one that suffered from too much of an artistic take that strayed away from the source material. And then we have Prime One's offering. They did this in collaboration with Sideshow in order to produce a quarter scale piece, and this thing was enormous. It felt like a 1/3 scale piece because there was so much height on the base. There was so much height above him with the tendrils sticking up. And this one was an homage to the Venom Dark Origins series. So you had a certain look for Venom based off of source material. And I think they did do a good job on this piece, although it is very top heavy. His shoulders, his arms, his torso on the top feel too big for his skinny little legs. Although when I reviewed this piece, you can see that it makes sense, but it's just the illusion that it looks like in this picture. The tendrils were super wild. The portraits, however, were amazing. Prime One Studio always knocks it out the park with their teeth, the way they have that kind of realistic enamel look, the saliva they knocked out the park, some of the best tongues in the quarter scale Venom game, and I still think this is probably my favorite quarter scale Venom piece. Then we move on to the PCS 1/3 scale Venom. Now, I reviewed this piece as a prototype. I ended up purchasing and reviewing the production piece, and it was in my collection for a while. And it's based on the Gamerverse license, so they had to kind of use that source material, although it still looks like any Venom that you've seen before. I did end up selling this piece. There was a lot of criticisms about this as far as being just this big, beastly, bulky piece, and I think those criticisms are warranted. It was a simplistic piece as far as the base. You just had this high-gloss symbiote. You had an enormous Venom pegged in on just 1 foot, lunging forward. And I think it kind of suffers from the same thing as the Prime One piece. He looks and feels very top heavy. Look at his arms and hands compared to the legs and feet. And the portraits had the Gamerverse look, which I'm not mad at, but I would have preferred a more comic accurate look. Quality wise though, I still did like the tongue and the teeth. Not as good as something like Prime One Studios or even the life-size Sideshow bust, and another bust that we're going to look at next. I think this Venom piece was good if you were collecting 1/3 scale Marvel, or if you just wanted an enormous Venom statue in the collection. It's by no means the best Venom statue out there. This is one of the exceptions to the rule. I think I might be out of order a little bit at this point, but Sideshow did make a Spider-Man vs. Venom diorama, technically more of a 1/5 scale, and I'm surprised that we don't have more Venom dios. I did own this one. I kept it in the collection for a little bit, but honestly, if it's not quarter scale or above, it just doesn't do it for me. The quarter scale stuff hasn't really been doing it for me lately. This is a piece that I liked, but I liked Spider-Man more than I did Venom. The portrait had a nice look to it, but again, not the Venom from the source material that I love. Same with the emblem on the chest. You know, this one doesn't have the avocado texture, but it almost looks like it might be a little bit too smooth for me. We don't know what we want as collectors. This one was cool, but I don't think it's a memorable diorama. You don't really hear many people talking about it, but it's out there if you guys want a Spider-Man vs. Venom. Which brings us to the last Venom life-size bust on this list. This is the Queen Studios bust. Easily the best life-size Venom bust out there, and probably my favorite Venom statue of all time, even though it's just a bust. The quality on this is top-notch, even though they did have a batch that had this jaw issue that I had to get professionally repaired. Shout out to my man Alex Salami. But this piece is incredible. The detail, the quality, you could even see in the teeth, in the tongue. The paint applications are there. They don't miss with having a muted mouth and tongue. It has colors that pop. It does have some tendrils, but they're not overly wild. Just kind of giving you a little bit more so that it's not just a simplistic bust. It also has a nameplate, but they went with more of the movie logo, which I'm not typically a fan of. Now that I think about it, I would have rather had the comic logo. Also, something I'm not really a fan of is the way that they did the Venom emblem, but even with those, I still feel like this is the best Venom bust, and I think overall, it just is more impressive than those other offerings. All right, so I alluded to this one before. This is the most recent Venom premium format by Sideshow, also sculpted by Martin Canali. There's things that I like about this piece. There's things that I don't. I do think it's the best Sideshow Venom that they've done so far in quarter scale. I actually think I like the base a little bit more than I like the full piece. I'm digging that green slime aspect to it. You have a destroyed goblin glider. You've got the symbiote going crazy underneath, and you have paint applications that honestly no other companies have been doing. Sideshow has been doing this kind of reflective kind of paint, which I've seen people criticize. Personally, I'm a fan of it. It makes sense that you would see this glow on his knees and on his hands as he's got this kind of radioactive sludge underneath him. He doesn't feel top heavy, even though he's got broad shoulders, a huge back and chest. He still has big quads and large legs that make it feel like it's in proportion with each other. It's got your traditional Martin Canali portrait, which is not my favorite iteration of Venom, to be honest. I like that Bagley look, even the Todd McFarlane look. This one is the Martin look. He just does his own thing and gives his own artistic take on the character. I love the Venom emblem. It feels more comic accurate than what we've seen from others. I still own this one, and I have it paired with the Queen Studios life-size bust. And then we have the most recent XM Studios Venom. Now, I don't believe this one has been released yet. It's up for pre-order. It should probably be coming out pretty soon. But this is their follow-up to the original piece that we showed earlier. And man, it's got a lot going for it. There's things I like about it. There's things I don't like about it. The base looks very classy. You've got these cherubs and these angel statues. You have two different contrasting colors with the light gray and then the dark gray to black, which looks like it may be part of the symbiote. I feel like he suffers from being over textured too. It's giving me the avocado texture from the Sideshow premium format. But I do like the overall composition of him, and the body anatomy seems to be more balanced than any of the other ones that we've seen so far. I do like this portrait with the green slime on the tongue. That's something that we've seen ever since Venom Lethal Protector issue 1, where Mark Bagley started incorporating that. Not out yet, but I do think it's going to be one of the better quarter scale Venoms. And before I get into the last Venom statue on the list, just a quick word from our sponsor. You guys want to meet legendary artists Jim Lee and David Mack, plus John Dalmayan, the founder of Torpedo Comics and drummer for System of a Down? Well, this month will be your chance. Saturday, November 18th, JPG and Steve Shuett are celebrating their 1-year anniversary of Ninja Funk and having this private signing. It is free to enter, but if you want to get anything signed, you can purchase tickets right now at Eventbrite. There's going to be CGC witnesses, and you can leave your books to get submitted there as well. If you guys are in the area, go to the Ninja Exchange. It's in Carlsbad, California. More details at Eventbrite to check out the event. All right, guys, so I promised you something crazy at the end of this video that you probably haven't seen before. And if you have seen it, thanks for sticking around anyway. But not a life-size bust, a Venom life-size statue. Jeez, this thing is huge. You can see what it looks like next to a regular-sized human being, and it absolutely dwarfs that. 220 centimeters, which is over 86 inches tall. This thing is enormous. And like most life-size figures, I think the quality of it looks terrible. Actually, I found the site and where this is being offered up for sale. This thing retails $16,000. And again, looking at the piece, well, actually, this picture doesn't look that bad, but you can see when you get to life size, I feel like you sacrifice the quality. I mean, that doesn't look good, right? I mean, the texture on the actual symbiote doesn't look good. Man, that row of teeth looks terrible, and the quality of the teeth doesn't look good either. They do have translucent resin kind of wrapping that whole tongue, which gives it a more of a high quality look, but I don't think it was executed well. For $16,000, I don't want something just because it's super large. Although it would be cool to have in the basement, I feel like it would be an eyesore, and it would definitely be a hit on the wallet. So that is every licensed premium Venom statue ever produced, unless I missed something. If I missed an important one, leave me a comment down below. I mean, leave me a comment either way. Which one of these would you like to have if you could only have one of these statues? Appreciate you guys watching. Stay minty fresh. Peace.